welcome back to a little of our functional filter, everyone. So we've got our block and our different shaped blocks to go on in. We've covered in these episodes on applied functional science, which are from the Gray Institute, what truth is, what applied functional science is, what truth is with our physical, biological, and behavioral truths. And we also took a look at how those truths become principles and mutate into our strategies and our techniques. Another filter that we can kind of go by and abide by amongst this process of getting better is using this filtered like system for shapes right here as a means and a way to see if the shape that we're putting in, if what we're putting in is ultimately if that's functional. We talked about the SEDS principle, specific adaptations to impose demands, and that the specific environment and activity that we're engaged in is going to enable us to adapt specifically to that environment and that movement, and that we need to be extra careful with regards to that process, with regards to knowing that if we do want authenticated, genuine change and to enhance our movement, we need to be able to pay special attention to that. So when it comes to this little functional filter here, I have all these little shapes right here, and we're basically going to have a little conversation. So amongst this conversation, with these little blocks and everything like that, we want to know, environmentally speaking, is it from a functional and a non-functional perspective, where is it amongst kind of this process? So from a functional perspective in the environment, is it genuine? Is it authentic? Is it filled with chaotic, unpredictable, and unstable, natural and real like drivers? Or is it unnatural? Is it artificial? Is it counterfeit? Or is it fake? So here it's kind of like the movie Elf, when Buddy the Elf meets Santa Claus and he smells beef and cheese and says, "Santa, you're not real, you're fake." So the little clover-like guy needs to be able to fit in the clover. So is the environment, is it, the next step is it gravity, momentum, inertia, and ground reaction force based? Meaning, okay, as a human, we're affected by all that stuff all the time, but we need an upright, skillful position to be able to experience that. We need ground reaction forces. We need to be able to allow the body's proprioceptors to gather stretch, compression, and tension feedback in terms of where it is in relation to itself in space, and to be able to properly load to stabilize so that we can unload. Movement is a direct response to how well the body loads. If we're not influenced in an environment that is of gravity, momentum, inertia, and ground reaction force, that is a confused environment that we call laying and sitting. The square goes in the square. Mass and momentum, those need to be leveraged and used. They cannot be neglected, and they cannot be counterfeit. So the triangle goes in the triangle for mass and momentum. Motion, we need motion to be three-dimensional. Movement happens in the sagittal plane, forward and backwards. It happens in the frontal plane, side to side. Happens in the transverse plane. In a functional environment, it's three-dimensional. In a non-functional environment, it's one-dimensional, and typically only in the sagittal plane. Not very good for a specific adaptation, huh? So the triangle goes in the triangle. A couple of these shapes are actually a little bit hard. That's why we have a functional filter, right? In terms of a next, in terms of a chain, is it functional or is it non-functional? The non-functional says, hey, it's a link, it's isolated, small portion. The chain reaction to the functional side of things says, from a chain reaction perspective, we need multi-joint approximation, multi-joint compression, congruency for this process of proximal stability for distal mobility so that we can further disassociate and gather feedback, proprioceptive feedback throughout the kinetic chain. So this kind of, this four-sided little kind of Tetris, kind of four-sided little monster right here is going to go in this hole. And then let's see, this next hole. So with regards to with a reaction with proprioceptors need to be, I think this is the right one, proprioceptors need to be, it's not, proprioceptors need to be facilitated. So all these little mechanoreceptors that are sensitive to stretch, compression, and tension need to be able to be facilitated, need to be genuine, authentic, specific to function, and not isolated. So we need to be able to know that motion turns these proprioceptors on and proprioceptors turn motion on, not inhibited, such as sitting in a line. So the octagon is going to go in the octagon. Muscles. Muscles are reactors, they're not actors. And a typical conventional school system and setting, and from this body-based world that is developed from anatomy on the table, isolated function from dead bodies as proprioceptively dead, we see that the motion that we're told that these muscles have are based on only action, no loading taken into account. We need to realize that with regards to muscles, three-dimensional loading, eccentrically decelerating, and isometrically stabilizing enables them to be the reactors, the cause or the control. So ultimately, cause is the non-functional perspective, action-based way of looking at functional anatomy with regards to muscle function. This reactor, this controlling like effect of gravity, momentum, inertia, and ground reaction force and the resistance of our body is this functional perspective and way of kind of taking a look at muscles. So the circle, octagon, kind of goes in the octagon. Joints. We need joints that are, let's see, so a little four-sided shape, are not isolated but integrated. We need multiple joints moving at once in all directions and dimensions to help us facilitate the loadability of the connective tissue, the muscles, the fascia that connects muscle, tendon to bone, ligaments, bone to bone, and joint capsule. So we need multi-joints at once. So in terms of the task, is function a conscious reactor, or is it an actor? So a conscious reaction would be the non-functional way of looking at it, and a functional way of looking at it would be the subconscious, chaotic, unpredictable, unstable environments. Specificity, we talked about the SEDS principle, specific adaptations to impose demand. We need to know that the environment and the motion, the movements that we're involved in are going to, with our principal strategies and techniques, drive our adaptation. So in terms of our transformation, we need ultimate, real, genuine, authentic specificity, not stagnant. When it comes to, let's find my last hole here. When it comes to mobility, stability, strength, power, coordination, time and rhythm, and balance and endurance, we can't think of this as segregated and isolated. We need to think of this all being integrated, combined into one. Square goes into the square. Some of these are actually a little bit challenging. Here's a little hexagon, and then a sexagon. So, applied functional science. You've got your functional filter now that you can take, that you can play with. Compliments of the great institute, compliments of those that are applied functional scientists. to be able to apply to your rehabilitation and performance enhancement based process and story. Have a fun time playing with those. If it doesn't meet criteria of our functional filter, if it doesn't fit in based on our truths, based on our principal strategies and techniques, and based on the list of what we talked about environmentally, we need to throw it out. It's not good enough for what we need. The adaptation, the response that we're going to get is not genuine, it's not authentic, placing us at great risk for this epic dilemma of allowing this root to grow in our gardens and not being able to